Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to your Four Lads Sunday members only stream. Good afternoon. If you're watching this means you are one of the members of the channel. And I'm joined today by our new podcaster, Mark Morrison. Mark, good afternoon, mate. How are you?
Good afternoon, Stevie. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon to all the viewers as well.
Well, this is a bit where it gets nervous for us, Mark, because when it's live, it immediately pops up and tells us how many people's on live. All the comments start coming through, and then we just start our show as normal. So for a members show, we like to do it, and it's dictated by the members. So whatever the members like to talk about, that's what we're going to talk about. So if no members turn up, Mark, we've got nothing to talk about. But let's kick it off. You're obviously new to the channel. What have you made of Danny Rohl's first couple of weeks in charge?
I think first and foremost, domestically, the fact he's got 3 wins on the bounce is fairly positive. First of all, I think he's solidified us. You know, he's defensively made us stronger. We're not so much giving as many chances away as we had under Russell Martin's tenure. Playing a bit more football-wise, better in the eye. And his ways of winning, if you take a perspective, come on a game at home, creating a lot of chances, which we weren't doing, as I mentioned, with Russell Martin. But the Hibs away one was a big one for me, because even with a new manager in charge, I was still slightly nervous. But I think, you know, it was an old school Rangers performance in terms of midweek, away at Hibs, not an easy venue to go to. Got the early goal, which obviously settled the nerves, and defended like dogs to also keep a clean sheet. And 2 clean sheets away from home. Be fairly positive, given, as I mentioned, in terms of the chances we were giving away earlier in the season. It's been fairly positive. Europe, I think, in all fairness, the brand game, he'd only been indoor for 48 hours. I think it was one for him to get an assessment of sort of where the team's at. And I think you can see from there the defensive changes he's made, and also made some tweaks to the system to obviously help the likes of Mike Moore. You know, has also had quite a positive impact. Alongside defensively, as I mentioned, we've been fairly solid throughout, which has been positive to see. And then the League Cup semi-final, I know it's been mentioned plenty of times, but obviously there's a bit of controversy in that. But I think the positive for that was the fact that we were down to 10 men. We never gave up. Second half, you know, we were fairly solid. You know, we got the goal and got into extra time. I think previous showings prior to that, we would have been in for a hiding, and I think that's the positive for me across the board, where it's been solidified across the piece, but more so we're scoring goals and creating chances as well.
Yeah, I think that's all pretty fair. I've got to be honest, I talked about this a wee bit. Obviously, we've done the live show on Friday night in Blackpool Camp Pioneer, which we absolutely loved, and obviously talked about Danny Rohl a wee bit. So that has kind of been covered, but for the viewers watching, I like him. I want him to do well. I think he's very personable. I think he's a very nice guy. So from that point of view, I'm really hoping that he goes on a run, because ultimately, Mark, all we want at the end of the day is a successful Rangers manager. But the comments are up. Thank you to editor Andrew, who popped on just for a wee second to fix that. I don't know what happens with that, but he has fixed it. So thank you very much for that. First question, and let's have a look at this. William Smith asks, thoughts on the Kevin Thelwell interview? He says, completely tone deaf from the club and points to him being here long term, which is frightening. Mark, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because when he actually first came in the building, I actually thought it was a decent appointment. Just in the back of his record at Everton, the obviously financial fair play issues that I had at the club. He'd done quite a lot of good dealings in terms of selling like sort of Richarlison to Tottenham. You know, so some of his business dealings were relatively positive. However, first of all, the appointment of Russell Martin, that came under a lot of scrutiny, and rightly so. Evidence showed why. I think for me, the transfer dealings throughout are again under a lot of scrutiny, and I think we can see where we are in terms of league table. It doesn't lie. But just to the actual question itself on the interview, I think is absolutely spot on. And there is also a major concerns across the board in terms of the recruitment, alongside this piece on what's going on in the background, like the appointment of his son and other bits and pieces. I know you'd mentioned yesterday about the piece on the Scottish coach, which we might come on to later, but I've got my views on that. But overall, I think he's absolutely spot on where, the disconnect from the fans and Kevin Thelwell, and even the comments, I think it's pretty damning in sort of where he's at and his position right now, in terms of wanting him out, and can understand, given the evidence we've seen in a short space of time, and the concerns the fans have. I think they have every right to do so.
Yeah, I think they definitely do. But here's the issue, right, I have with stuff like this. It's obviously scripted. It's obviously choreographed to suit what the club need. So it is, in a sense, a PR exercise. They're not going to hold Kevin Thelwell to account, for example, and, why are you putting in your son? Why are you appointing these people? Why is the summer window being quite poor, etc. So you're never really going to get the spikiness of fan media, for example, being able to get an interview with Kevin Thelwell, which I think we would be able to ask a wee bit more directly than a club-based media. So first of all, there's that to consider. Second of all, I think that it's good that we hear from the club, but it's always difficult when it's from somebody you're not too sure about. And if you took away the Kevin Thelwell aspect of it, it's actually pretty decent what he said. We're looking to be active in January, looking to strengthen areas of the pitch. And, he talked about that quite positively. The problem is with Kevin Thelwell is that he put Russell Martin in, which was completely tone deaf. He then signed a group of players in the summer, which were essentially young lads, and didn't sign the experience perhaps that we needed. And it almost looked like he was a bit blind to what Rangers needed. And from that point of view, it then gives you the suspicion that he completely underestimated the task of the job, thought it would be easy to fill it with players that he thought were good, and he never really combined the two of what he thought were good and what Rangers thought were good. And if Russell Martin, like he's claimed, did have the final say on signings and things like that, then that also falls on him for putting Russell Martin on there in the first place. So it's a difficult one. Kevin Thelwell could turn this around if he has an absolutely banging January window and we sign 3-4 players that are cracking and Rangers turn it around. But it's difficult because once the fans have made up their minds, as we've seen and have seen for several years on different managerial appointments and things that go on off the pitch, it's difficult to turn that around. Personally, think Kevin Thelwell is a dead man walking, and it's a matter of time in regard to his position at Rangers Football Club, and I include Patrick Stewart in that as well. But I hope that answers that one. Craig Alka, Craig, thank you, mate. How do you see the upcoming transfer window going? First position you would strengthen, Mark?
Centre forward for me. I think it's not just a matter of one. If I'm honest, I think there's a number of positions across the board that needs strengthened. But I think centre forward and centre back are probably the two. I know that's not obviously just one, but I think for me the spine of the team is probably absolutely crucial. It will be critical for us to have a strong second half of the season. It's very evident when looking at the team earlier on in the season. We just didn't have that, hence why we were giving away as many chances as we were. The likes of John Suter, he's out of contract in the summer. He's a solid defender, but I think he's more of a back to the wall defender than a typical ball playing centre half. And that's all fine and well. You're playing with a team that's at the lower end of the pitch, but the likes of ourselves, when we're dominating games and also giving away chances, which we all do throughout. But I think he's more of as I said, a back to the wall centre half. Strikers wise, like Chamiti, again, it's a transfer that's had a plenty of scrutinisation, understand why. But Miovski, Danilo, I think has actually came on a game, but I don't think he's an out-and-out 9. So I think that's probably one for me that, I think we need to strengthen if we're also going to have a better second half of the season. But for me, I think it's across the spine of the team that definitely needs strengthened for January. But it's a transfer window that is a difficult transfer window. Clubs aren't willing to give up their best players. Prices are normally inflated, and given the money we've already spent in the summer, if we are to reinvest in January, that is then going to come at a price that we will have to sell. And again, it comes back to that: who will be willing to pay the prices that we're wanting in January? Not all the clubs are willing to do so. The only plus we could have is if any free transfers become available for the following season, and be able to get them at a discounted price. But again, it just depends on who's becoming available at that point in time.
Yeah, January window's traditionally difficult. What position would I strengthen first? I'm really desperate to get a 6. I think a 6 helps Mohamed Diamande. I think a 6 helps Nico Raskin. I think it also helps the central defence if you've got somebody that's sitting there. He doesn't need to necessarily be one that just sits. He could be, a box-to-box 6 to 8, but somebody that's going to knit that midfield and defence together, because I do feel there's too many gaps, too many spaces in between the lines. And that probably coincides with what Mark's saying about the spine of the team. So we definitely need a centre-back. I think John Souttar last night for Scotland was pretty woeful. And I think he's really suffering form-wise. I've said it before on here that I felt that if Connor Goldson had made the mistakes that John Souttar had, and we more or less ran Connor Goldson out of town, then he wouldn't be getting it as lightly as John Souttar does. John Souttar seems to get away with a lot for Rangers, in my opinion. So of course you need a left back, you need a centre back, you need a 6, and I'm with you, Mark, as well. There's something missing up top as well. Could a spine of the team help the likes of Miovski, Ant-Man, Thelwell, Asgard? We're never going to know. But at the same time, with the 3 of them mentioned and the ones you have paid money in, is there anybody that you would really turn down money for in January that came in? I'm not so sure there is. So twofold, I think, the window in January. Like you said, there's people who come out, but maybe Gassama, Mark. But apart from that, if you were offered light money for Miovski, Chermiti, Ant-Man, Thelwell, Asgard, if you were offered like for like, I'm not sure that I would be turning down those bids. And that's impatient. I get it. It's impatient because we need to give players time. But if you offered me 3.5 or 4 million, whatever we paid for Asgard, I'd be taking that kind of deal. So it's a difficult one.
I'd bite your hand off for it, if I'm honest. The Chermiti deal, if we were to get anything around £8 million, I'll drive him to wherever he need to go. But it's just where we are. I don't see us recouping a lot of the money that we've spent so far, just based on performances we've seen throughout the season. As I said, under Danny Rohl, we have improved. But throughout the season, they've not shown enough to say that they are Rangers class. And I think it's one that in that window, though, it's a difficult window as it is, but people willing to pay that money, I just don't see it. I think the only thing, Gassama is probably been our best performer in terms of the new signings. Would we be wanting him to go? I'm not so sure, because I think he will get better as he gets older, the more games he plays. And obviously he's worked with Danny Rohl before, so he'll be working that system a bit better. But I'd be probably one of the only ones I'd be wanting to keep. But the others, if offers did come in, if they did, I'd be surprised if they did. However, I think we'd have to listen.
Yeah, I think that is a damning kind of statement if you look at January and we're sitting here going, Gassama aside, you would be willing to deal. Mikey Moore's obviously come onto some form, you'd like to keep him. Would you really blink an eyelid if Max Aarons, Nasajiga went back, for example? Not sure you would. Would you keep Joe Rothwell? Not sure we would. So there's a lot to unpack there. January, as much as it was a big turnover in the summer, Kevin Thelwell says we're looking to be active. Wonder what active for Kevin Thelwell is. Active for me, you're talking about 4, 5, 6 in and out. So it could be an interesting one. January's notoriously difficult. So a few comments here as well. Richard Taylor, centre back and left back. G3P3, centre back, he wants desperately. Billy commenting on as well. Need players in, but also need players out. Absolutely. Andrew commenting. Thelwell signings are shocking. I have zero trust in him in January. We need to move away from championship draws and sign experience. I don't think between Mark and I or any of the other podders we would disagree. And I don't think the majority of Rangers support would disagree, to be honest. Gaz Jones, how are you? Thelwell has lost any trust the support had. He will need a miracle to survive. Absolutely. Again, Dennis, interesting one. Do you think they will shop outside the English market, though? I would like to think so. But, it's about getting the right player, not necessarily about where they go to shop. I don't want them going down to the championship again because we've been burned so many times. And if we get to January and they sign 3 players, a 6, a centre half, a left back, and they're all 19, 20-year-old, we're in the same pattern. So there needs to be an acknowledgement there that they need to do things right, Mark. I think they need to, not right, but I think they need to get the balance right. And interestingly, Andrew Kavanagh and Kevin Thelwell spoke at the head coach's press conference and said that they didn't get the balance of what they did in the summer right. So I would assume from that then, Mark, surely that January they would be looking to balance that up, and it has to be experience that comes in.
Absolutely. We've got enough youth within the squad now. I think to your point, if you're talking signing our 2, 3, 19, 20-year-olds, I think we're going to have a lot of problems in the second half of the season. To the question in terms of the championship, I think history's taught us over the last few years in particular, it's a market that's overinflated, big wages, and for the quality you're actually getting, it's in terms of for the club, it's done us no good. Because then even try to get these boys out, a lot of times they don't run down their contracts, or we're selling them for a lot less than what we've paid for to get them off our books. So for me, it's a market I would not be wanting to touch. It's not to say there's a lot of talent here and there, but normally they're being tapped by the Premiership clubs pretty quickly. Or you're going for a really youngster where they're 16, 17, and at that point we're not in a position to be signing. We're needing experienced players, to the question. And I think for me, a couple of 28, 29, 30-year-olds, just in terms of bringing that experience in, guys that have won some form of competitions, I think we're lacking that across the board. That experience from going from start to end of season, knowing what it's like to grind out results. I think first and foremost, that's what we need to be bringing in. This project piece that we have done has come back and bit us in the backside. And for me, I think we just need to get some expertise and some experience in there to help the younger lads develop them and know what it's all about, winning and grinding results out.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think what they did is they had a window that we probably could have had if we had a winning, settled team. And you could have bought in guys that you could have matured and nurtured, and you could have turned Tello Asgard into a good player if he was in a better team and given him a year and a half, the way we did with Calvin Bassey before, putting him in. But if you're signing £4 million players in a team that isn't winning and that needed urgent surgery, then we consider him to be going straight in at first choice. That's where the Chermiti thing baffles me, when they talk about £8 million not being a lot and we're happy and we're comfortable and we know that he's not the best player in the squad, but he is going to be in 2 or 3 years' time. I'm sorry, guys, if you're signing that kind of money and that kind of output, we need value and quality now. So that's I think we'll move on from that one. We've talked about it a lot. Billy asked, when is Big Sterling due back playing anyone? So, Billy, the answer to that, if you remember a couple of weeks ago in the podcast, I told you Dujon Sterling was 3 to 4 weeks away. Dujon Sterling is now back in training with the first team. He is now back on the pitch. You would have seen Nico Raskin and him training. I think it was that week or the week before, on the run-up to Celtic game, it would have been. So Dujon, I should imagine, will be back in the squads within the next couple of weeks. Maybe a bounce game or two to get him some fitness, and then we just have to try and get him back in the squad. Obviously, he could really help Tav. Could he play right centre back? Could he play right back? Could he sit as a 6, which is interesting because he's got the power and he's a big guy. So could they temporarily use him in there? I think Dujon Sterling, if he's fit, could be a really tremendous asset to the squad, Mark. The issue is with Dujon Sterling. And by the way, Dujon Sterling is the type of player that should be phasing James Tavernier out of right back and making it his own, but he's never fit for more than 4 or 5 games. And he's obviously not where Tav is at this moment, but they should be nurturing each other and then overtaking and Dujon getting that number 2 position, but he just hasn't been fit at all. And that's been the biggest disappointment, because when he plays, I think Dujon Sterling is a good player for Rangers.
Yeah, to be fair, I think it's one when he has been fit. His performances have been fairly positive throughout. To your point, though, the concern I do have is just the amount of injuries he's had over his Rangers tenure. The only thing for me with him is his versatility as well. He can add across, that period under Clement, who was playing in the centre mid. I actually quite liked him in there. I thought he added quite a bit of value to the team. But I think to your point on challenging Tav, and that actually benefits Tav as well. If he's got competition, he's got to be on his game week in, week out. If he is having a point, given his age now as well, he can come out Sterling fitting in there, and as I said, pushing each other every single week. I think the only thing with Sterling is this injury has also been quite a lengthy one, but it's not his first one. He's had a number throughout this time, and I think it's one. Is he out of contract? Is it following summer? I think.
He got a new 4-year deal, didn't he, Bojan Sterling? So I think he should have at least 2 years left.
Okay, so
while you're answering, I'll go and look that up and check it.
Yeah. I think for me, obviously he's back on the grass, which is great to see. Also getting him to full fitness and also giving Tav a bit of pressure will only benefit Tav. But I think Sterling getting back in the team will be a positive. I think his energy and what he brings to the team, his physicality, I think is something we've been lacking as well. And I think he seems to be a positive influence across the dressing room, which is good. But you need that when you're obviously in the pitch and in the dressing room when obviously it's not going for us. So it'll be good to get him back in. But like I said, it's been a length of time he's been out for, but it's not the only injury that he's had.
Yeah, 2028. So I was right. He's still got two years to go after this season finishes. Richard Taylor asks as well, what about young Watson from Kilmarnock? He's a free in the summer. See the report saying Celtic were looking at David Watson. He's an interesting player. Again, though, here's the difficulty. And how do I word this properly without... would I take him? Yes, I think he's a good player. Is he what we need at this very moment? No, he's probably a development player in terms of coming to Rangers and seeing how he could flourish. And he's not somebody you bring in and look to start immediately. He's somebody you look to bring into your squad. He's somebody you probably look to bring in instead of signing Joe Rothwell, in all honesty. But it doesn't detract the fact that, Diamandi and Raskin are probably still your best centre midfielders. You need another 2 to push them. You need a 6. And then the likes of Barron and Watson building up and pushing and trying to kick on from there. So yes, I would have signed, or I would sign him, especially if it's on a cut price deal. But I'm not signing him because I think he's going to make the urgent difference that we need to the first team, Mark.
No, 100%. I think he's a talent. There's no getting away from that. I think the only thing, to your point, and we mentioned it earlier, is just on your young boy coming into that team. I think that now, just given where we are and the fragility with obviously the team, we have picked up over the last few weeks, but he's a good footballer, and I think he will get better over time. But will he come straight in that starting 11? I'm not so sure. I think for me, if we were to get him in, it'd be a matter of developing him. But will he come in that starting 11? I'm not so sure at this point in time.
Yeah, I would agree. That's the issue for me. I'm not against having Watson in the squad. Big Shoe says he wouldn't get anywhere near the squad. That's all right. I don't mind that opinion at all. I think that the difficulty for me is Rangers need quality. They've got a squad, and it's a squad of much likeness. We need to find 2 or 3 players that are going to make the absolute difference to this first 11. So that, for me, where does Watson fill in to that? I'm not sure he does. Question just further up a wee bit, a couple of questions. Going to go back to Karen asked, do you think Rohl will have any say in what players we target? Yes. And so this is where it depends on how much you believe. Kevin Thelwell says that Danny Rohl has a significant say and has final say on all players coming in. So he would maybe say, right, I need a left back, and they go in and he says, I've got a couple of ideas, and the scouts will come with, I think this is where Thelwell Jr. and Kevin Thelwell come in. They then compile a list and they go back to the manager and they work their way through and decide who to get. Where it becomes problematic is how much do you really believe of that, and that's up to you. I would hate to think that Danny Rohl is coming in and just accepting what's given to him, because that then, ultimately you're just a coach and you're not really a manager. And I understand his term is head coach, Mark, but I still want my head coach to have final say on players, identifying players, being thoroughly involved. I really want Danny Rohl to bring in a couple of big, massive Germans, a couple of really hardened, experienced German players. Unfortunately, I think Matthias Sammer's long retired, but that kind of experience is what I'm looking for, and I would love to think that Danny Rohl would have a say in that. So, do I think he will have a say in players we target? Yes, because I choose to believe that, Karen, because if I didn't, the alternative to it, Mark, and the idea that he's not got any control and he's just dealing with whatever's given to him, I think that's really difficult and not a route that I want to start beginning to think about.
No, I think the concern, if it is to go down that route, and Rohl has no say in the targets, and he's working with players that he's had no involvement in the process. At the end of the day, for Daniel to succeed, he needs to have an influence on who he's wanting to bring in. Obviously, he'll understand exactly what positions are need to be corrected across the park. He's also going to be working these players day in and day out. And if he's not having that influence, then he's pretty much becoming a yes man. I don't think he is, given his history at Sheffield Wednesday, dealing with that previous owner at the club. I don't think he is that type of man. But to your point, he is also classed as a head coach. But I'd like to think he's got other influence other than just picking a team that he's given, and also players that he's been asked to work with without his influence. I think for me, it's a dangerous game. And I know in the European model, there's quite a lot of that. But for Rangers, I think the manager has to have a major influence on players that are coming into the club. And the recruitment also need to do their bit in terms of identifying if Daniel Rohl saying we need an X, Y, and Z, and then giving the list of targets, and then for Daniel Rohl to have the final say. I think is important, given he will work with the players day in and day out.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting subject. Billy brings it up. It's a two-part kind of comment, but Billy's talking about Bojan Miovski here. He says, why the long-term drop-off in goals scored since Aberdeen? Right, okay, let's journey back to the summer when we signed Bojan Miovski, and I commented on it quite heavily on this channel. That I was quite glad we were signed him, but I was really concerned about how good Bojan Miovski actually was, and do we play the type of football that suits him? And the answer that I was concerned about is we don't play the type of football that suits him. Aberdeen very much soak up pressure and then we're able to hit. And that's why he was so good against Rangers, because it was constantly balls in behind and things. He makes those runs for Rangers and we don't have players to give him it or can't find him. Why the drop-off? He didn't play as much for Girona. We know Girona signed him for £6 million. Rangers got him for the best part of £2.5 million. I think that's telling in a way as well. I've been disappointed by Bojan Miovski, but at the same time, Bojan Miovski's in a team that quite honestly doesn't create chances for 9s and 10s. So until we fix that, and I do believe that hopefully that will happen, but until we fix that, there's huge question marks over that forward line. Why the drop-off? 1, I don't think Bojan Miovski's been good enough. 2, I don't think we've been good enough for Bojan Miovski. And 3, he's working in a team that doesn't suit him. And Mark, that was my biggest fear for Bojan Miovski. He's going to have to adapt. Rangers are going to have to adapt to him. And he's going to have to knuckle down a wee bit when it comes to form and life at Rangers. I think that's the easiest way for me to explain it.
Absolutely. I think the part for me, obviously when he was playing at Aberdeen, as you said, the space in behind, he can get in, he makes the runs. A lot of the time when we're playing teams, in particular at Ibrox, don't have that space given. They obviously have the 2 banks of 4, and we don't have that space to first get in behind. He has had, since he's left Aberdeen, he's not played a lot of games. I did actually check a few times in the January of last year when there was talk about it of potential leaving. He's not played a lot of games since he's left Aberdeen, and I think that's telling when he's actually came into Rangers. He's not looked fit either. Come 50, 60 minutes, I think he looks absolutely knackered. So I think that's a bit of telling on the journey he's been on since he's left Aberdeen. And to your point, though, I think it is just an Aberdeen style of play that get it along, as I said, soak up some pressure and get on the break. We don't obviously play that. We're quite possession-based, also build up the play. Also the ball wide and getting in the box, whereas I think he's better at sort of space in behind, getting the ball over. And we don't play that to his strengths at all. So I think it's a difficult one. I think there's 2 parts to it, obviously the way we play, but I think the lack of game time since he's left Aberdeen's also had a bit of an impact there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major concerns, is that football's got a lot to do with momentum and confidence, which you'll see Rangers at the moment, all of a sudden 3 wins in the bounce in the league, look different, and they looked a lot more professional and comfortable at Dundee. Of course they did. and we have to make that a normal thing. But it also stands for the players as well. Nico Raskin's been really down lately, not playing on form, but that would have been a huge relief to him on Sunday to score. Likewise, Jerry Gassama, who hadn't scored in quite a while. So confidence, when you get it and when you knock in a goal or when you get a few results and you start to get that feeling back, hopefully will begin to help not only him, but quite a few players. Comment here from David Glendinning. David, good friend of the show. Even a couple of season pros playing in the SPFL now, I would take. Interesting, yeah. We had a long discussion. Now, Barry, when Barry was coming in, it was believed that Barry's kind of hit list of short list of players, if you like, included the likes of Lawrence Shankland. It definitely included Josh Mulligan, who ended up going to Hibs, which we pulled the plug on. Lyle Cameron, who we signed and was coming regardless. But it also included, we think, Scott McKenna at centre-back, and also, obviously, Lawrence Shankland, who we talked about. But old favourite at St Mirren was in there as well as Ander Gogic, who we talk about quite a lot. Gogic being experienced. Gogic a player I really like, but my issue with Gogic is I don't watch St Mirren. I watch him against us, and he defends really well against us, and he does well against us, and we play in a certain way that suits him. But he's got that leadership, he's got the experience, he's got the character that we don't have in our team at all. So a couple of seasoned pros from the SPFL. I'm not really sure there is many. Could you get a seasoned left back from the SPFL? You would need to search a wee bit, but you probably could. Could you get Gogic in? It's going to split opinion. It really is amongst the fans, Mark, if you got somebody like that. But Marvin Andrews, came in out of nowhere and was part of a double winning league season, and everybody thought that he was a bit rough and ready, and Marvin Andrews actually surprised a lot of people. So I sometimes think we do a disservice to our own game, and maybe there are a few pros in there that could help us.
Yeah, I think for Gogic, for me, I think his organisational skills is absolutely critical. In terms of that leadership piece, we are lacking that across the board. Talent-wise, yeah, I can understand why some of the fans would have some reservations on bringing him in. But for me, I actually think, he's solid. He'll put his body on the line, he'll throw himself out there. And I think it'd help the likes of Cornelius, Suter, just by having that organisation. And Coulson was pretty much like that, organised the defence. I know that had split opinion with the fans as well in terms of his time at the club. But for me, I think, we need someone like that who will just grab the team. I think anytime, I think you'd mentioned it on the pod before, but the way it's a Mirren game, when we played them a couple of months back and Rangers were on top for the game, he's filled one of the players, brought his team in, gathered them, obviously organised and just calmed the game down. We have no one like that in the team, which for me, I think he'd be a solid addition. Nothing pretty on the eye, but I think it's just someone we need to obviously lead and organise the team. In terms of another player, Shankland, for me, I think, for a couple of seasons now, we keep turning it down. I don't know why. Shankland scores goals. Again, I think he's Hearts captain. He leads the team. I think he'd be a brilliant asset to the club. He's a Rangers fan as well, which helps. He gets what the club's all about. I think they'd be the two if I was looking at the top of my head that I'd be looking to bring in. But I think the Gogic one would definitely split opinions given he's also coming from St Mirren. But to your point on Marvin Andrews, it was a similar thing back then, but he done relatively well throughout his time.
Yeah, I think players are there. It depends on how reasonable you scout them. Going to bring this up because this is talked about quite a lot. Takahiro Tomiyasu, Japanese. He's a fullback, can cover at centre back. 27-year-old. The reason why he is still on a free transfer is because he's not fit. He missed almost a year of football at Arsenal, consistently injured all the time, and his record was horrific. He missed 101 games and 690 days of football. That's why Arsenal, contract didn't run out. Arsenal terminated his contract because he was permanently injured. That is the reason Tomiyasu hasn't got a contract with anyone. And I see him mentioned quite a lot. It's very much, and I don't mean this to sound cheeky or anything else, it's the sort of thing I would say because I'm a very big Football Manager player and stuff like that. And he's always available and it makes sense. But Tomiyasu is made like a rich tea biscuit. And you know, he is lightweight and he's just not capable of being fit. And that record I just read out to you from Arsenal is the exact reason why he doesn't have a club. As for Renan Lodi, who again G3P3 has just brought up, he wants an extraordinary amount of money. And I don't see that happening. He was getting linked with going out to America as well, last I heard about Renan Lodi as well. So that's an interesting one. Karen brings this up, and this was talked about earlier on as well. Craig Halkett at Hearts going out of contract. Here's the thing. Is Craig Halkett performing at Hearts just like John Souttar would be at Hearts? And would Craig Halkett be able to come and make the step up to Rangers, where he started and where he was very good? Craig Halkett's somebody that's been injured for quite a while. Would I like to see Craig Halkett instead of Nasser Jiga and things like that, or young loan players? Absolutely, 100%. Would I sign Craig Halkett if John Souttar was leaving? Yes, probably. Homegrown, Scottish talent, would count towards our own because he trained with us as a youngster as well. So I think John Souttar's time at Rangers is up. Would I take Craig Halkett to replace him? Yes. But is Craig Halkett my first choice centre-back? No. But is he a very good and experienced Scottish centre-back that we don't already have? It's a difficult one, Mark. If Souttar's leaving, I think Halkett's a good chance, a good shout. I think Souttar should be leaving as well. Craig Halkett probably falls into that. I'm of the opinion that these are the kind of guys you need in your squad. But if Souttar leaves and I replace him with Halkett and Giga's going as well, Cornelius won't be there, I'm still signing a centre-back to play in my first team with Halkett, pushing him behind him on the right-hand side.
In all fairness, I think he's been fairly solid this season for Hearts. I think you're right. He's a good squad player. Would I have him replacement Souttar? Yeah, absolutely. I think he's probably better than what we've got. But for me, I think to where we want to get to is at the sort of standard and quality we're wanting to bring to that team. I think for the squad, yes, but starting 11, I'm not so sure. I think he's solid enough, and I do like him, to be fair. As you said, he's been part of the Rangers Youth Academy a long time ago, but for me, squad player, I'd have him in all day long. I would sign him, but do I see him adding anything to where we would need to be? I'm not so sure. That's the only concern I would have. I think he's pretty similar to Souttar, and we've got our concerns with Souttar week in and week out.
Yeah, fair. I think it's a like for like one. That's the thing. See, if John Souttar went back to Hearts, I'm pretty sure that John Souttar would excel at Hearts, because I think that, and I don't mean that as any disrespect to Hearts. Hearts are having a brilliant season. They've got some very good players. I just mean there's less scrutiny on him than he is at Rangers. And I also think as well at Rangers, could John Souttar get better with other players around him that are better? Potentially. Could you have Halkett and Souttar backing up two first-team defenders, which you need either way? You know, where does Manny Fernandez fit in? At some point, we've got to find out what's going on with him. So, yeah, Mark, I think as far as debuts go on Four Lads, you've done that very well. Thanks to everybody that's got their questions in and conversed with us. We like to do this every so often for members. So thank you, Mark, for your debut, and look forward to seeing more of you on the podcast.
No, thanks for having me, and thanks to the viewers for their questions as well. Some good questions in there.
Yeah, let's hope that when we do come back in and we do have further kind of discussions like this, there's more good results, Mark, because Rangers now embark weirdly on a part of the season where they're out of it at this moment in time, and it's looking not great. But the next 6 league games, Rangers play Falkirk, Livingston, away to Dundee United, away to Kilmarnock, home to Hibs, and away to Hearts. And that takes us up to Christmas time. And those 6 games, if Rangers manage to come through them, which is a huge ask, by the way, a huge ask, Mark, all of a sudden, by default, we find ourselves back in there. And it's ludicrous in a way because we've been so poor. We're going to play Hearts. Celtic play Hearts. We play Hibs. Celtic play Hibs. Hearts play Hibs. And everybody plays each other. Excuse me, milk's come back on me. So, ironically, if Rangers just keep winning and take it game at a time, they'll find themselves default back in there anyway. And I can't quite believe that, given, I think, out the first 8 games, we drew 6, won 1, and lost the other. It's quite remarkable, actually. But Rangers just need to take one game at a time and concentrate on that.
I think to your point, it is remarkable. We're still as close as we are, given I think in prior seasons, if it started in this manner, the league would have been out of sight. I think for me, Fine's looking at the next 6 games and where it takes us. I think we need to take the one game approach, the old cliche. I think just given where we are, where the squad's at, where the team's been performing last 3 games, and domestically has been really positive in terms of 3 wins out of 3. But for me, I think we just need to take each building block at a time, game by game, and then see where it takes us. And to your point, I think it's important that each of the teams who will be playing round about us will be playing each other. There will be points dropped. So for us to just galvanise, gather that bit of momentum, as I said, every single week, just game by game, building that. If we get a run of 5-6 wins out of that time, we'll be there or thereabouts. We'll not be far away. But I'm not going to get carried away just yet based on what we've seen so far this season. I think we just take next 2 are both at home. Teams are at the lower end of the league. They're not a given by any stretch of imagination, but it's a good platform to also get these 6 points if we can, and then both from there. 2 tough away games. Dundee United, we know the history with them, and then Kilmarnock's, it's like Rugby Park. It's never an easy place to go, but for me, just one game at a time. Take it as it comes every week, and let's see what the rest of them get up to. But there will be points dropped, and to your point, it is remarkable that come December, we could be still in this title race and all to play for going into 26.
Yeah, and we have to focus on that, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what we're going to try and do. It's never easy. And I will say this, a huge thank you to our members and everyone that tunes into the show every week, because it's never easy to come on here, and it hasn't been the most positive. And what do we do? Do we try and flower it up? Do we try and shine it a wee bit? Do we try and tell you everything is wonderful? Or do we be honest and just try and have those discussions, no matter how difficult they are? I hope that what you're seeing on the podcast is a show that we want to develop. Mark has joined us as a long-term viewer, somebody that really was keen to join, and we wanted them to join. You've seen that Amrit's also here now, part of the squad, and he's great. He's like Santa Claus on Prozac, isn't he? He's ultra positive and all happy and shiny. So we want that. We want different voices. We want people who are long-term viewers to come and have a chance to be on the show. So there is that route to do that. If you want to be part of Four Lads, there's a show called First and Favourites, which Mark did, which Amrit did. And it's basically like a test drive to see if there's a possibility for you to come on. You do it with Davey here. Davey is a historian of the club. He's written books and all sorts. He's absolutely brilliant. And you can sit and do that show with him. And it's a thank you to us, from us to you, for being members. Because by being a member, whether it's 99p or £2, whatever it is you pay to support the show, you are supporting the show. Just last week, I was able to go and get Amrit and Kenny brand new laptops and mics and things, because they need them to be able to do the shows. And that comes because you support us. So we really appreciate that. And that's what you do for us. And it's a thank you. So what do you get for being a member? You get the odd occasional show. You get to watch the replays all back ad-free. And you get some perks. You get to play weekly competitions with Black Rooster, which are always on the shorts. So please go and check that out. So we've got a home game. Go and check it out. And you could win. Nobody's won it yet. Nobody's predicted this season. You get a chance to win £15 voucher for Black Rooster. Nobody's done it yet, given the erratic nature of Rangers. Go and check them out. We have the odd occasional members-only show like this one, which we'll try and do a couple of times a month. We'll try and get different faces on to do it as well. And that's your discussion corner, where you can ask whatever you like. So we really appreciate the support, and this is a thank you on behalf of myself, Kenny, and all the squad. So thank you very much. You will find us this week. We'll be live Monday, we'll be live Wednesday, and we'll be back on Friday. And then Matchday Vlog is back from Ibrox at the weekend. Next couple of weekends, actually, because obviously we've got Falkirk, Livy, and then we've got Braga as well in Europe. So we'll be busy. Plenty of shows ongoing. We'll also have some match reactions straight after as well. So thank you, everybody. We hope that we're doing a really good we hope that what am I trying to spit out here? We hope that we've got a very good platform that you enjoy. We hope that adding people in and giving viewers opportunities to come on and tell their story helps people, and people enjoy that as well. If you've got a certain type of show you want to see, if you've got ideas, contact us. We are 4ladshadadream@gmail.com. Get in contact with us. You want to say hello, please do so. We've just returned from playing Blackpool on Friday night, which we absolutely love. We're going to Northern Ireland in March to take our live show there. We are available if people want us to come play their supporters club or their local pub, whatever. Get in contact with us. We will do it. So let's leave it there, Mark. Thank you, mate. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you to all our sponsors as well. Rhino Express, Clydeview Fire Protection and Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, Candid, and our partners Black Rooster and Art of Gold. We will see you this week. We'll be back, as I said, Monday night live, 7 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Take care and have a wonderful Sunday.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.